You're still watching the Aviation Business Morning, and this is the Eastern Business Report, which is designed to bring you up to speed on business activities and issues, as well as policies affecting businesses and the economy of the southeastern region of Nigeria. It comes right after Global Business on the Aviation Business Morning, and on today's edition of the Eastern Business Report, we'll be looking at, something we started talking about as yesterday, talking about airfares, right? As highlighted yesterday on the Eastern Business Report, passengers in Nigeria have been charged 250% more for air tickets in the last 1 year, and now they are preparing for a steep rise during the Christmas holidays. This is due to rising operational costs for airlines, a decline in naira, and growing passenger traffic during the Yuletide season. This in itself has put a financial strain on people who use airlines to travel to meet their families or go for holidays. Domestic and international flights are experiencing a high increase in their prices, mainly due to factors in the external macro environment affecting the aviation industry. Now, all these issues and more will form the basis of our conversation this morning. My name is Ubong Kings. Welcome. You're welcome back, and joining me on this conversation around airfares soar by 250%, the fact that Nigerians are rushing to book for Christmas, is Wilson Uche, the convener of the Aviation Meet. It's good to have you, Uche, join us this morning.
Thank you very much, Ubong. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you. But before we get into this, there's a certain report I stumbled upon that talked about the prices, air prices, so to speak, this situation of some airlines in Nigeria. We'll just take a look at that, and when we come back, we'll continue this conversation in detail. Please stay.
Airfares, one of Nigeria's leading airlines, has announced a significant increase in its fare for the popular Lagos to Abuja route. From November 1, 2024, passengers will be required to pay up to N200,000 for a one-way ticket. This hike comes as airlines across the country struggle to cope with rising operational costs. Economic challenges force airfares to raise prices. The increase in airfares has been attributed to worsening economic conditions in Nigeria. An official from Airfares explained that the escalating cost of aviation fuel, maintenance, and taxes are major factors driving the fare hike. The airline, like many others, is feeling the pressure from rising costs and is left with no option but to pass this on to consumers. Air travel becomes unaffordable for many Nigerians. With the new N200,000 fare, Airfares will have the highest ticket price for domestic flights in Nigeria. Other airlines are also following suit, with aero contractors charging between N94,000 and N109,000, while Arik Air and Ibom Air have fares ranging from N104,000 to N133,000. This drastic rise in fares has left many Nigerians turning to road transport, although the high cost of fuel has made this option less affordable as well. Impacts on passengers and domestic travel. The rising cost of air travel has severely disrupted travel plans for many passengers, particularly on the busy Lagos-Abuja route. Airports across the country are reporting increased numbers of stranded travelers who can no longer afford the steep airfares. Many passengers are being forced to seek alternative modes of transport, compounding the challenges for the aviation sector.
Welcome back, and yes, indeed, you just saw that reportage, and we're going to get into this conversation proper. And I still have with me Wilson Uche, who is joining us to talk about this. So, Wilson, first of all, what are your thoughts? Because prices are usually expected or anticipated to rise during the Yuletide season, and that has not changed in a while. But really, from your perspective, do you think this is supposed to be the norm? Is it not supposed to crash? Prices are not supposed to crash, to encourage people to travel?
Thank you very much, Ubong. You know that during festive period, normally we see a situation whereby there's an increase in price, no matter what it is, both in land transportation and all of that, because there's a large number of movements of both human and even goods. So that puts a whole lot of pressure on the transport system. But in this case, I think I personally, this is my personal view on this. I think it's not something that anybody would want to um, accept. Because let me give you an instance. I have places to go to, and I decided to make booking ahead. That should be around December, early December, and then middle of December. So earlier on, I saw the fare to be around 150,000 per trip. Then again, I checked the next day. It was already 285,000, 286. And 286, when you look at it, then when you now book it eventually, you get it at 300,000. So for those 2 trips I'm going to make during December period, that means I'm going to be spending over 1.2 million to and fro. So, for me, having to jump from 150,000 toll and then coming back 150,000, and then you multiply it to see how much it's going to give you. So I feel that there is no justification in as much as there's so much happening in the country today. The naira devaluation is truly affecting the airline industry, because most of the things they do within the airline industry is actually based on exchange rate, and our currency has fully gone very low. That is the situation we found ourselves.
Not justified. Yeah, it's not justifiable. I like that line of conversation there. And I want to bring up some few things that I put down here. One of the things is there are some factors that all these airlines are harping on as the reason. Number one is the fact that they are subjected to high cost pressures through inflation, high jet fuel prices, and currency devaluation. You talked about currency devaluation already. But quite frankly, from your point of view, is it not about the same amounts of, within the same range of amounts of monies that they still get the same product? Do you think it's going to change if we're looking at it in December? Is it going to change, and then maybe they're anticipating that rise in the price or the cost of maybe aviation fuel, for instance? So they're anticipating that, so they increase their prices to match the cost of the aviation fuel eventually.
Actually, when people say that they are actually adding cost or adding a certain fare in order to take care of such instability that we see in our currency, one would agree, especially when you are in the business. Because of instability, our naira is at a certain rate today. Then the next day you are having 70 naira drop. That leaves you with no option than to set a particular set the rate at a particular level in order to take care of all these changes. But I feel that as business grows, you begin to see things evolve, and then you begin to match your price based on the reality that is on ground. But now, when we see a situation whereby, aside from the aviation fuel that is going up and on, that is where I also expect the government to also be able to cushion the level of inflation that we are seeing. The truth about it is that there's so much the government needs to do to be able to curb this high inflation. Because the truth is that when you go to the airports nowadays, you see the airport near empty, and the people are no longer willing because the cost is high. Then if that happens, it leaves the airline with no other option than to fly empty. Sometimes when you go into the aircraft, you find the entire seat almost empty. And then it doesn't even profit them. Because when you fly your aircraft and half empty, you find out that you are not even making up to the amount here. So that is where I am expecting that even if there's going to be increments, then some should be able, a certain increment should be justified. Jumping from 150,000 naira to 285, not even 285, because at the end of my booking, I found out that I paid 300,000. I have evidence to that. So jumping from 150,000 to 300,000 for a journey of about 55 minutes from Enugu to Abuja, that's outrageous. And I believe that every person that ought to look into this should be able to look into this. If there's a way to assist the airlines, then the government should come in and assist the airline. But most of all, we should look into alternative means of transportation because there's so much pressure in the airline industry. Just like the government is coming up with CNG and all of that. We should be able to make our roads motorable. There must be things, or even coming up with subsidies. There must be a way to cushion the effect that this increment is bringing to the general populace.
But now you've said it, let's talk about it. Is there a possibility that the federal government or agencies, ministries, departments can actually, to a large extent, come into making subsidies available for airlines? Is that even a possibility?
It is. It is in developed countries or even developing countries. What they try as much as they can to do is to ensure that, okay, look at it from this angle. When the level was complaining about a high level of inflation, government came up with a way to subsidize things. At least they came up with the issue of CNG, providing CNG buses and all of that in order to reduce the cost. And also talked about giving out palliatives. There is this possibility that government should be able to cushion the effect because the effect is so high. I tell you the truth, how many Nigerians can afford 300,000 naira per trip? And then if the person has to return and the person has to pay another 300,000 naira, you see that people will go out of their way to be able to travel. Remember, our roads are near motorable. And if that is the case, and then the level of insecurity in the society in our country today is quite high. When you travel by road, you keep hearing things like kidnappings and all of that. So people now to going by air as the best way to travel. But now you see that we are now having it at a very high cost. You can't fly by air, you can't travel by road. So people may eventually resort not to even travel again, stay behind. But that is not good for our economy. So we must government agencies should be able to come in, look at the cost that is involved. Because it's not only the aviation fuel. There are taxes. So much taxes. When they tell you the operational cost, when these airlines tell you the operational cost, you will so marvel. Several taxes, multiple taxation. So these things can actually be streamlined, reduce the operational cost for these people, and then see how best that will affect the fare, which eventually, of course, is going to help people who are traveling by air.
I used to think that when there's high demand, the price is reduced because there are a lot of players in the same industry. So when people are demanding for it and there are a lot of players, people who are offering the same service, prices ought to reduce. But that clearly is not the case here. I mean, you say quite a number of things that, yeah, you're going to say something, but it's not. That's not what's playing out.
You need to see this for what it is. And in Nigeria, there's this saying that nothing goes up, comes down. Even when the government intervenes, that is why the government should be proactive. Seeing it coming, they should be able to sit on a round table. Maybe when initially there seemed to be an announcement that was made, in quotes, there was an announcement and they said that a certain airline announced an increment. Then the airline much later denied it. But of course, when that happened, I expect that the authorities should have called operators and have a meeting with them. The fact is that they are into business. Nobody will want to be going on loss while running his business. Business ought to be profitable, and nobody would want to do that. Again, I also want to use this medium to call on people who have the money to invest more in airline in in setting up new airlines. Because the truth about it is that where there is competitiveness, when there is competition, the truth about it is that it helps reduce the rate. But what we see in Nigeria is when there's an increment from another airline, other airlines see it as opportunity to also increase theirs. So you see that it doesn't give room for competition, which could result to price reduction. So Nigeria is just playing out a situation whereby I would quote say, this is my personal opinion, people take advantage of the situation that is on ground. But I tell you, if they tell you the operational cost that the airlines go through, you will so amazed. You'll be so amazed. The truth about it is that present the economy is filled with a lot of taxes. The government is using taxes to ensure that they bring in revenue. But that also is putting pressure on the ordinary business that is in the street, including the airlines.
Good point. But finally, just before I let you go, what are your thoughts? Now, imagine a case scenario, a bulk of persons can't afford to travel back home, say to the east, for instance. How would this greatly impact the economy, so to speak, of the southeast? I mean, let's localize it. We're talking southeast now. So how would this greatly impact the economy of the southeastern part of Nigeria?
My brother, our people are known to always travel, especially during the yellow tide. I tell you the truth, the movement is going to truly slow down. We're going to have less people travel down to the east, thereby affecting a whole lot of activities that have been lined up for the yellow tide. I remember that during yellow tide, the Christmas season, you see a lot of people coming up with their weddings, traditional marriage, festivals, and all of that. One is the issue of insecurity. Of course, it is going to affect movement. Secondly, the airfare. People who would have thought they could use their air to travel would also have a rethink. Thirdly, having spent all of that, you find out that you are left with almost nothing to now play around with. So it's really going to be it's going to affect a whole lot of things. I can assure you, Bob.
And we'll keep our fingers crossed and see how all of this pans out eventually, whether or not there will be a form of subsidy that comes into the sector, the aviation sector, or we'll see airlines begin to come into play and prices reduce, or whether or not people will still travel. We'll get to find out. Thank you so much, Wilson, for joining me. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And in case you don't know, I've been playing host to Wilson Uche, who is the convener, the aviation meet, and we took out the time to look at the hikes, so to speak, in the prices of airfares and whether or not it's going to affect the Yuletide season, especially here in the southeastern region of Nigeria. You may want to drop off a comment or two on this particular discourse on our dedicated Afia Business YouTube channel. Go to www.youtube.com/Afia Business. And while you're there, do well to hit the like button. You should subscribe so you get notifications on all business-related content coming to you from Afia TV. And by the way, we are on socials and Instagram, more specifically with the handle at Afia Business _. And that's the size of the package on the Eastern Business Report. Coming up next is Onya Afia. Thank you for your time. My name is Ubon Kings. Good morning.